My name is Elena Brower, and I am hosting Barbara Becker today. Barbara and I know each other for a long time, a couple decades from New York. She is the author of one of my most influential books during my chaplaincy training. This book is called Heartwood, and I will include substantial links and ways to obtain this book in the post that will follow after this live, so don't worry. Barbara is an ordained interfaith minister in New York City. Over the past 25 years, she's partnered with some of the world's most courageous human rights advocates in pursuit of peace and interreligious understanding. Barbara has also sat with over 1,000 people at the end of their lives and views each one as a teacher. Her book, Heartwood, The Art of Living with the End in Mind, this is one of my favorite books, was listed at the top of Katie Couric's Media's books that will change your life and has been used in social work programs, in chaplaincy trainings, as well as psychology and writing classrooms around the country. I brought it into my chaplaincy project, which had a three-pronged approach to what I call the monastery of daily life. And Heartwood was one of the most influential resources in my hospice section of my thesis, my capstone. Barbara, it is such a joy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Elena, thank you. And, I was thinking about you this morning before we began, and now what integrity you have brought to your chaplaincy training. I mean, you are in many ways a star in so many worlds, and it would be so easy to step back and ride on those laurels, and you don't. I mean, you have gone into prisons, you have worked with families in grief, you are there at the bedside when so many people shy away. So I just want to take this second to honor you and your path.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been very important for me. Before we started, if you're watching, we were just talking about the Lojong slogans. They are Indian, Tibetan in origination, but have been taken up by many different Buddhist teachers and traditions. And my teacher presented to me this morning in Daesan in a practice interview, number 30, which is don't be so predictable. And I think that would have been very predictable of me to not really dive in and just sort of gloss. And it's been a real beautiful learning for me to actually take it up and spend the last 2 years doing this work. And now there's no stopping. My timesheets are over and I'm still going in to all of these placements, all three of them, and feeling very fulfilled. So thank you for your feedback and your reflection. It means a lot that you read my capstone. That was a 50-page scandal, if you're watching. And I would like to talk a little bit about Heartwood here, about the origination of this book, about your own training, what it's meant to you for our viewer who maybe is finally ready to say, you know what, I've had a full life. I'm really excited about the movement toward elderhood, perhaps, and I want to become a volunteer. I don't know the first place to start, and you are paving the path for us. So I'd love to hear a little bit along those lines, if I could.
Yeah. So I want to bring my friend Marissa into the room. Marissa was my earliest childhood friend, like such a joy, such a little imp. We had so much fun together growing up, just so full of life. So when she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, my world fell apart in so many ways. And it was so painful to know that I would lose her, but I would also lose my parents who were still alive at the time. I would lose friends, I would lose family, and I would lose my own life at some point. And that, surprisingly or not surprisingly, was shocking to me. And I knew that I really needed to embark on some kind of journey to examine death. So that's exactly what I did. I live in New York City, and I was trained by the New York Zen Center for Contemplative Care, to lovely Zen monks who just brought us into the heart of being present at the bedside. And I spent my time, my training at Bellevue Hospital in New York City, where it's one of our largest, it is our largest public hospital. And we have patients from every single faith tradition, every single background and culture, and no faith traditions at all. And how would I be present to all of that? Not the Buddhists, not the Christians, not the Jews, not the, traditions that I was most familiar with, but everyone. So I did that training. It was extraordinary. And then I decided to become ordained in the interfaith tradition so that I could really learn enough to be dangerous about many different traditions and really be present to all of it, including, people who just professed no traditions at all. How do you show up for that?
Yeah. A big shout out to Koshin Paley Ellison, who is here on Substack, who is the co-founder of the New York Zen Center and that contemplative training. His husband Chodo, just two incredible humans. Koshin and I happened to meet in Japan, celebrating Keizan Zenji's 700th death anniversary, 700 years, and we finally got to see each other in person, and there we were. And wow, he's
I
a light.
cannot.
Please look him
Yeah.
up here on Substack. His Substack is really incredible. Koshin Paley Ellison. Um, the format of Heartwood inspired the way that I wrote the section on hospice in my thesis. You have basically a list of the people whom you've served, including close family, including a very personal story of your own regarding your own family and how death wove in and brought you all to a closer understanding of your own mortality and also a deeper acceptance of it. Um, these stories are riveting and short. And if you're considering getting this book, if you're considering going into any sort of volunteerism with regard to hospice or um, elders, this is a really important book for you to pick up. It has been out for some years, but I promise you will never be disappointed by picking up this book. It will inspire you deeply, our viewer. Um, in my capstone, which is called The Monastery of Daily Life, the subtitle is The Three Heart Minds of Zen as Structure and Inspiration for Buddhist Chaplaincy. I'm saying all of this not to sort of show off, it's to inspire somebody watching who maybe wants to try and connect with this training. It's at upaya.org. You could also do it in New York. You could also do it in your town. There are chaplaincy trainings the world over. And I am, I know you do too, Barbara, so full of this work. I'm not restless anymore as I was. I'm not like trying to grab everything that I can grab anymore. This is really about settling into my life deeply, serving in any way that I can, going to sleep at a reasonable hour, and doing it again until it's over. I wonder if you would be open to, do you have your book with you?
I do.
I wonder if you would be open to reading. The section that I pulled is on page 69. I've been meditating on and off since my miscarriages, bottom paragraph.
Mm. The more I learned about Buddhism, the more relevant to real life it felt. The Buddha had begun his spiritual quest as a young and sheltered prince who snuck out of his father's palace under the cover of night and was instantly confronted by scenes of old age, sickness, and death. This will happen to me too, he thought, and to everyone else, be they kings or paupers. His purpose became to find a way to experience inner freedom, even in the face of the uncontrollable human conditions that sweep through the lives of all of us. I couldn't think of teachers I'd rather be learning from than those who had knowledge of the path out of suffering that the Buddha had uncovered through much sacrifice and hard work and deep insight. I half expected that studying with these two Zen monks would be like finding some kind of cosmic shortcut. And of
But
course, it doesn't work like that.
of course, it's never going to work like that. It's going to take years, and it's going to take, as you go on to say, you worked with patients in the 25-bed hospice unit at New York City's largest public hospital at Bellevue. And on the first day of class, there you were, just like me, busy taking notes like a dork, trying to absorb as much as possible. But for the most part, you write, what is being asked of you is to show up with undistracted presence for every person you would encounter. And I think here, we could read a million of the stories, but here is where I think if we're going to have some semblance of service to our viewer today, we need to emphasize this part, this undistracted presence. As Koshin goes on to say on page 71 at the bottom, he says, in class, say the person in bed wants to tell you about his favorite sports team, he said during class. Even if you couldn't care less about baseball, begin with a sense of genuine curiosity. That undistracted presence, genuine curiosity, this wasn't in our curriculum. I made it part of my curriculum. These were the touchstones of my nervousness, my anxiousness as I entered into the hospice those first few weeks. I just stayed curious and undistractedly present. I made so many mistakes, Barbara, as I know you did. I overdid it. I underdid it. I was too much. I was too little. All of the things. And each time I learned that the most important thing I can do is just stay present and stay curious. Ask more questions. Don't have so many answers. In fact, don't have any answers at all. Just be there. And I
Yeah.
wonder if you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah. I think often about that very Zen premise of not knowing. And I repeat those two words to myself all the time. You have to show up not thinking you know a single thing about anything, be it sports, be it about any religion, be it about the, medical condition of the person before you. Nothing, like absolutely not knowing, and
Mhm.
treat every situation like that. And the amazing thing is that this applies to working with the dying, but it also applies to our life. I mean, this is incredible training ground for absolutely everything. Um, you know, I feel that this loss at the bedside has taught me so much about all kinds of loss. Showing up for friendships where someone's experiencing divorce, for the empty nest that I'm feeling now that my son has just gone off to college and is away from home. I mean, saying goodbye to my husband as he goes off to work every day. There are little ways to practice this, and all of them involve that principle of not knowing.
Not knowing is the first of the three tenets in the Zen Peacemakers organization, too. If you're watching and interested in learning a little bit more about the sort of origin of that particular phrasing of this concept, Zen Peacemakers org, zenpeacemakers.org. I'd like to go on and just talk about a couple of the situations in which you found yourself in hospice. And the first one is shortly thereafter, Mrs. B, room 724. It was your first week as a hospice volunteer, and you knocked on her door. You went in. The East River is outside of her window. It sounds pretty beautiful. And she says, come in. And you notice that she's holding a rosary with blue beads and a silver cross in her fragile, aged hand. And, you know, there is a certain bit of, if you are thinking about volunteering in hospice, if you're watching us right now, there's a certain amount of sort of steeling myself, steeling, that I must do every time I walk into a room. I never know what's going to present itself. And there's always this element of heart string tugging that happens. So I that moment is always very important, and I have to kind of get steady and use my practice, dignity. You say, "I'm Barbara, and I'm a volunteer here." It's my favorite word. They say, "Are you a chaplain?" And I say, "No, no, no. I'm just a volunteer here." And you say, "Would you like a visitor?" "Please sit down," she said, and she indicated the little chair. You chatted about the framed photos, her 2 daughters, many grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Um, and when she grew silent, you asked her a really cool question. You said, "What were you thinking about when I walked in?" And I wonder if you could share with us a little bit. That is such a beautiful way to welcome someone who is in hospice, who is close to the end of their lives. Instead of saying, "Oh, it's going to be okay," or saying whatever your you know, small mind brings to the table. What were you thinking about when I walked in?
Yeah. I mean, they have all kinds of questions lobbed at them at every turn. What's your blood pressure? Have you had a bowel movement? I mean, everything, the indignity of lying in a hospital bed. And very rarely do people have the chance, even with family members, and perhaps especially with family members, to dig into that invitation of where are you with this? And it often goes right to the heart of what they're feeling because they're in such a vulnerable place. And and when you do that with full sincerity and all the love and kindness you can muster, people can tell. They can tell that you really care and that you really want to know. And
Yeah.
I found that with Mrs. B. What a beautiful soul.
So beautiful. You went on to uh, ask her. There was a tear that was coming down her face, and she said, you handed her tissue, and she said, "My grandson called, and he's sad because he's not going to make it to see me before I pass because of his work." And so beautiful. It's your first week in there, and you held such a space for her when you asked her, "Have you thought about writing him a letter?" Not, "Would you like to write him a letter?" "Have you considered it?"
Mm.
At which point she said, "I can't write, but I would love to." And she sort of brightened up, you report on page 75. And she dictated a letter to her grandson to you. I wonder what that experience was like.
Oh, let me read it because
Please,
they're
please,
her
please.
words. And let's just think about her for a second, wherever she is in the cosmos. She
Mm,
said, "Dear Keith, I want you to know how much I love you. You have always been such a fine young man who has made me proud.
mm.
I wish you all the best. I hope, if it's God's will, that someday you will meet a young woman who you can start a family with. I'll be looking down on you from heaven. I love you so much, Nanny."
When I read that, I pictured my mom had a heart attack, and it was really just a quick 48 hours before she passed. She was never really regaining consciousness. And when I read this letter in particular, I have it flagged because I pictured if she could write a letter to my kid, what she would have said, something like this, something like that. And I really appreciated that you offered to dictate, and write it. Just beautiful, just beautiful.
Yeah, this woman really got to me too. I mean, it's by some beautiful coincidence. My last name is Becker, and so my mom was Mrs. B too. And so I did that. This beautiful connection to her, especially when my mom died a few years later. I really thought this woman is such an incredible teacher for me. I mean, I view her as an ancestor of my own, and I'm so grateful for this moment that I had with her.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
There's so many pieces of this book that stick with me. There's one on page 111. It's Mr. R.
Ugh,
Yeah.
yeah.
He was praying in Arabic, the incantation the Sufis had repeated over and over during their gathering, that he was recounting to you. And I wonder if you could read on the bottom of page 109. I leaned closer to Mr. R.
I leaned closer to Mr. R, and from the depths of my heart, I whispered the sacred words, La ilaha illallah. Nothing, only this. After several rounds of repetition, I began to wonder about him. What was the cause of his shaking? Where was his family? Did it matter when no one else was available that I wasn't Muslim? The beauty of the ancient phrase drowned my questions before I could formulate my guesses. None of the answers seemed worthy of this moment. La ilaha illallah. Eventually, I noticed that Mr. R's shaking had stopped. When I moved away from the bed, his body began to convulse wildly again, so I continued the rhythm. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. I hadn't expected the chant to affect me as much as it did. He stopped being the unwell person and I the well one, the one in need of help and the helper. He a man, I a woman, he older, I younger. What could possibly be the use of divisions like that?
Mhm. And that chant, in case you're watching and wondering what it means, it literally means nothing,
Yeah.
only this. In every faith, this is, I think, the wisdom. Doesn't matter what your belief system, who you believe is in charge. There's nothing, there's only this moment. And that nothing is more true than when we are in those settings with the dying. And if we can remind people of this truth, that there's nothing, there's only this moment, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing else to do, whether we're the volunteer or the person in the bed, we have something so valuable. That's the gold of practice, I think. Wow.
It's this almost non dual arrival in the space of energy, I want to say, where there truly are no divisions. And
Mm.
it's very hard to experience that. And I love this work because it's like a portal to this divine truth.
It is. And I thought I would just going to pull up the end of my paper and go through a couple of the quotes that I included. In case you're listening, I think what's really interesting about the chaplaincy training, and I've learned a lot about proper formatting and APA formatting, and I I resisted it deeply in the writing of this. What I found, though, is in embracing this format, this sort of scholarly way of uh, delivering this work, other chaplains will see it. And in realizing this, I decided to include an appendix in my paper from Heartwood for end of life chaplains, a few quotes that have really meant something to me. So here we go. I'm going to read a couple of them. Here we have page 116 to 117. And this is in Barbara's book, Heartwood, that we are working with today. With each experience, I continued to learn that everything dies, that endangered species will disappear forever, that our neighborhood may very well be underwater someday. But the story of death can also be a story of the present moment. Be a non-anxious presence to whatever is before you. The seasoned disaster chaplains would say, be a non-anxious presence to whatever is before you. In the face of the hardest things we will experience, be as a boulder in a rushing mountain stream. Listen, take your time. The next move will emerge from the stillness. This is how we go forward, step by step, infusing darkness with light.
Yeah.
Page 162. The first act of a newborn is to breathe in. The last act of the dying is to breathe out. Our entire lifespan, and that of anyone ever born or to be born, in a single cycle of breath. What could be more worthy of attention?
I love that many people who go into this chaplaincy work have also had experience as birth doulas and
Yes.
really find that similarity between the two. It just breaks down all the boundaries.
Yeah. Page 186. I really appreciated this. I don't know if I will ever work as a formal chaplain. I don't know if I'll ever do the 2 years full-time CPEs. But I think I want to just spend the rest of my life walking into these situations and saying, I'm just a volunteer here, or I'm a volunteer here. But this quote, 186, our presence is far more important than any technical know-how we may possess about religion or spirituality. And this I say, if you're watching or listening to us and you're considering this even a little bit, even just being a volunteer, not even going through a chaplaincy training, your presence is far more important than any technical know-how you possess about religion or spirituality.
Yes.
None of it matters. James and I walked into a man's room just a couple of weeks ago, late at night on a Saturday. The director of the hospice put out a little call, and she's like, is there anybody around who could sit with this person? He's inactive, dying, and he has no family here. So we went over there, and I found out that he was a Catholic veteran. I have since discontinued my subscription to ChatGPT, but at the time I still had it. Long story for another day. And at the time I went into ChatGPT and I said, I would like to offer a prayer of some meaning to a Catholic veteran of unknown beliefs other than this, who is in active dying right now. I just figured I would see what would arise. And sure enough, a beautiful prayer, thanking him for his service, thanking him for his belief and his trust in God. And it doesn't matter what I believe, but the ease that I watched come over this human was palpable, unmistakable. And these are the kinds of things, this very simple things that we can do. Had I not had ChatGPT, had I just mined my own heart, which is now what I'm going to do because I am done with that entire supporting that whole situation. From my own heart, I would have said something very, very similar. To thank him.
People at the end of the day want to know that their lives mattered.
Yes, yes.
And to acknowledge that if they're still able to hear any stories, any regrets, because it's often the people sitting at the bedside too who have the chance to hear the thing that they might not be able to tell a loved one. Whatever it is, being present to this moment, this person who is not the same person who they were even a minute ago when you walk through the door. It's arriving here now again and again and again.
If you're watching and interested in beginning to consider what it would look like to be in service, Frank Ostaseski and Joan Halifax are actually doing, no, Frank is doing this on his own. He's doing a 5-month, once a month series on service starting this weekend, I want to say. upaya.org, upaya.org. He's just coming to my mind. He's become a good friend, and he is the one who taught me. He was the one of the founders of the Zen Hospice, which is now closed in San Francisco. Real a profound teacher for me. And he always says, similar to what you've just said, Barbara, sometimes just sitting in the corner of the room is plenty, and
Yeah.
your presence is plenty. I have one more quote. Sitting with discomfort can be far more intimate and helpful than trying to fix that which is unfixable.
Mm.
You wrote this on page 186 also. And wow, humbling, as I mentioned previously in this conversation, so humbling. The moments where I tried to fix something or make somebody more comfortable, the operative word being make.
Yeah.
And just remembering that I'm not here to satisfy my own self-interests. I am here to be a mountain for other people in the room and not do anything necessarily.
Yeah. I will tell all of you that the day that Heartwood came out, the day that I was meant to be celebrating this book in the world, I was going under surgery for breast cancer myself.
Wow.
And all of the lessons of this book hit one of those where the rubber meets the road moments. Like, is this true? Does this hold forth in my own life, in my own human fragility?
Mm,
Um,
mm,
that lesson of I didn't do any of it to fix myself. And what if there is something that's unfixable? It all held up. All of this work just brings us back with such profound understanding of right here, right now, this breath, this relationship, uh, this connection with everyone.
thank you so much. I pulled a dear friend of my son, his mom, every year sends a little Zen calendar. And recently there was a quote from Baruch Spinoza: reality and perfection are synonymous. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing to
And
fix.
no, there's nothing to fix. And this is not to say, last sort of, let's just bring it into this present moment, this present climate. We know some things, we don't know everything. We know the realities that we know, and most of them are pretty daunting and challenging.
Mhm.
This is not to say you're going to say, well, reality is perfect and I'm just going to be over here sitting in the corner. Yes, when you're at the bedside of the dying, that's precisely what to do. But if you are out in the world and you are remaining engaged and doing what it is that you feel called to do, remain engaged and do what it is that you feel called to do. But remember, one breath in, one breath out. We are really aiming, both Barbara and I, to have this conversation more of the time. Less about ambition, less about getting it right, less about being perfect, and much more about serving the people who need service and being present, non anxious presence for everything we touch. That feels important right now, a non anxious presence.
my exemplars in this very moment in time are the Buddhist monks who are walking across the country for peace. And they will say that this isn't even for us. It's not even for the state of the world, but a full acknowledgement that when we find this inner peace, when we work on being present in this moment, then we can act however the moment demands.
Mm. Barbara Becker, thank you, friend and sister and teacher. The book is called Heartwood. We've talked about it before and we will talk about it again. Please know how grateful I am and our viewer is for your presence here today. It means the world to have you here. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all so much, and may your efforts be of benefit to all beings.
Thank you. And I wonder, it's if we'd like to take 3 to 5 minutes just to sit quietly to sort of land here and gently become non-anxious presences. Let's do it. I'll come get us when it's time. If you'd like to take a seat, spine tall, eyes can be closed or cast down and gentle. And just allow your breath to smooth itself out with a few conscious inhales and exhales. Becoming a non-anxious presence is a practice. I'm recalling the preciousness of human life. Final 2 minutes here. Beginning to feel a little bit of space from thought to thought, a little more ease from inhale to exhale, exhale to inhale. Noticing the steadiness of your body, even your eyes, gentler. Final few breaths here. And you can gently bring your hands into gasho if you like, or maybe place them on your heart if you prefer. And take a moment to dedicate, as Barbara mentioned, the merit of our time together. May it reverberate far and wide and benefit many beings, all beings. May you feel empowered and safe in your choices. May all the humans that we touch here be served by our presence. Thank you for your practice. Thank you so much. What a blessing. Thank you. More soon, I will be sure to post this recording as a collaborative post. I'll be sure to include links, all the different booksellers, so you'll have that here in the post as well for the bookseller of your choice. And just thank you, Barbara, for everything.
Thank you, Elena, and best of everything for you in this new path that you are forging ahead. And may it always return you to this moment.
Thank you. Thank you so much. La ilaha
Illallah.
illallah. Thank you, sister. Thank you.